I never thought the day would come when I would stand in my own bedroom, holding evidence that shattered everything I believed in. My hands trembled as I looked down at the phone I had picked up from the nightstand. The text messages on that glowing screen cut through my heart like glass. They were not my messages, yet they carried the name of my wife and another man who spoke to her with the kind of passion I thought belonged to me. In that instant, I felt the same coldness my father must have felt many years ago when he realized that love could betray him. I always believed I was stronger, wiser, and different, but standing there, I realized that I had repeated the very cycle I once swore to escape. Before I continue, I want to take a moment to appreciate every single one of you who has been supporting this channel. To all my new and returning viewers, thank you so much for being here with me. Your time, your engagement, and your presence mean more than words can describe. For those who have not yet subscribed, I cannot wait for you to hit that subscribe button, because that is the fuel and energy that keeps powering this channel forward. Do not forget to share your thoughts in the comments section immediately after listening to this story. I love hearing from you, and your engagement helps us all connect in ways deeper than just words. Now, let me take you back, because for you to understand the shocking truth I discovered about marriage, you need to understand where I came from, the scars I carried, and the vows I made long before I ever placed a ring on anyone's finger. I was born in a small suburban neighborhood in Pennsylvania, the kind of place where everyone waved when you drove by and the neighbors knew the sound of your father's car. My father was a strong man, both in character and in physical presence. He worked as a businessman, always on the road, always hustling to provide for us. He believed in family, in building a legacy, in being the kind of man his son could look up to. And I did look up to him. At least, until the day everything changed. I was only 10 years old when the accident happened. My father had gone out of town for a business trip, and on the way back, his car collided with a truck on the highway. He survived, but he was never the same. The accident left him crippled, confined to a wheelchair, stripped of the strength and independence that once defined him. For most boys, fathers are symbols of power and security. For me, my father became a symbol of brokenness, not because he chose it, but because life had stolen it from him. But what truly scarred me was not his accident. It was my mother's reaction to it. Instead of standing by him in loyalty, she became someone I no longer recognized. I watched her grow distant, cold, and resentful. Soon, she started bringing other men into our lives, men who laughed in our kitchen, men who slipped into our home when they thought no one was watching. But I was watching. I saw her betray my father again and again while he sat quietly in his chair, humiliated and powerless. I saw the tears he tried to hide from me. I saw the way he clenched his fists, pretending not to hear the whispers and the giggles that floated through the walls at night. Those memories carved into me deeper than any blade could. I hated her for what she did, but more than that, I hated the institution of marriage itself. In my young mind, marriage was nothing but a trap, a prison where love died and betrayal thrived. That was the day I made a vow. I swore I would never marry. I swore I would never put myself in a position where one person had the power to destroy me. And for many years, I lived by that vow. As I grew older, I became the kind of man people admired from a distance but could never truly understand. I was charming, confident, and ambitious. Women liked me, and I liked them, but only for what they could offer me in the moment. Commitment was not part of my vocabulary. I treated relationships like entertainment, a temporary distraction that kept me from feeling lonely, but nothing more. To me, love was weakness, and I had no intention of ever being weak. I built a career in corporate America, climbing my way into positions of influence and success. I wore suits that fit me like armor and carried myself with the pride of someone who had seen too much to ever be naive. I was the man who had it all, at least on the surface. But deep inside, I was a boy still haunted by the image of my father's quiet tears. And then, she came into my life. Her name was Amanda. She was not like the other women I entertained myself with. She was beautiful, yes, but her beauty was not the kind that faded with time. It was the kind that made you stop in the middle of your thoughts and pay attention. She had a way of looking at me like she saw through every layer of armor I had built. It made me uncomfortable at first, but it also stirred something I had buried long ago. She laughed at my jokes, challenged my arrogance, and made me feel alive in ways I did not want to admit. The more I tried to push her away, the closer she seemed to get. At first, I convinced myself she was just another phase, another passing attraction. But the truth was, she was different. She had a way of making me question the vow I had carried since childhood. With her, I started to imagine a life I never thought I wanted. A life where love was not weakness, but strength. A life where marriage was not betrayal, but partnership. I fought it, believe me, I did. But Amanda was patient. She was persistent. And in time, she broke through my walls. I let myself believe that maybe my mother's story did not have to be my story. Maybe my father's pain did not have to be my fate. Maybe, just maybe, I could be different. And that was the beginning of the path that would eventually lead me back to that moment in my bedroom, staring at the phone in my hand, realizing that the vow I broke had brought me full circle to the very pain I thought I could escape. When I finally asked Amanda to marry me, it felt like I was betraying myself. For years, I had sworn I would never stand at an altar, never take a vow, never give someone the power to ruin me the way my mother ruined my father. But there I was, holding a ring, looking into Amanda's eyes, and whispering words I never thought would pass my lips. The day of our wedding was nothing short of perfect. The sun stretched across the sky, the flowers bloomed in the warm air, and the guests filled the small church with laughter and applause. Amanda looked like everything I never believed in, pure, radiant, untouched by betrayal. I stood there in my suit, my heart pounding harder than it ever had before, and for the first time, I let myself believe that maybe marriage was not a curse. Maybe it could be a blessing. The early years of our marriage were everything people write poems about. We laughed until our stomachs hurt. We traveled across the country, discovering new places and making memories I thought would last a lifetime. The intimacy was strong, alive, and unshaken. I woke up every morning believing that I had escaped my past, that Amanda had freed me from the chains of my childhood trauma. But happiness, I learned, is fragile. It is like glass, shiny on the outside but quick to shatter when the pressure mounts. The first crack appeared quietly, almost invisible at first. It began with work. I threw myself into long hours at the office, trying to climb higher and provide more. Amanda understood in the beginning. She said she was proud of me, that she admired my dedication. But slowly, I noticed the look in her eyes change. She grew lonely, even though I was just a few feet away. She would sit on the couch scrolling through her phone while I typed away at late-night emails. Her laughter, once spontaneous and full, became rare. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself things would get better once I achieved the next promotion, once I earned enough to give us the life we both dreamed of. But in the process, I stopped noticing the small things, the way she tried to reach for me in bed, the way her voice carried disappointment when I canceled plans, the way she longed for the man she married, not the one buried in deadlines. Another crack came with secrets. I had never told Amanda about my childhood vow, about the nights I watched my mother betray my father, about the promise I made to myself never to marry. I wanted her to see me as strong, not broken. But keeping that part of myself hidden was like burying a landmine under our marriage. It was only a matter of time before it exploded. And then, temptation found me. Her name was Julia, a colleague at work. She was bold, confident, and dangerously magnetic. Unlike Amanda, who was gentle and patient, Julia was fire, burning fast, burning hot, and feeding every part of me I thought I had under control. She laughed at my sarcasm, admired my ambition, and leaned in closer than she needed to whenever we spoke. I told myself it was harmless, just office banter, just innocent fun. But deep down, I knew where it was heading. It started with coffee breaks, then late-night conversations when the office was nearly empty. Julia had a way of making me feel like I was the only man in the world, like she saw a version of me that Amanda no longer did. The truth was, Amanda still loved me, but I was too blind to see it. Instead, I let Julia feed the emptiness that grew inside me. One night, after a long day at work, Julia asked if I wanted to join her for a drink. I hesitated. I thought about Amanda waiting for me at home. I thought about my father, sitting in his wheelchair, betrayed by the woman he trusted most. I thought about the vow I made as a boy. But in the end, I broke that vow once again. That night was the beginning of my downfall. At first, it felt like an escape. Julia made me feel alive, reckless, untouchable. With her, I forgot the weight of responsibility, the pressure of work, the cracks in my marriage. But what I did not realize was that every moment I spent with her was another dagger in Amanda's back. Every secret I kept pushed me closer to becoming the very person I despised, my mother. I told myself lies to justify it. I told myself Amanda would never know. I told myself it was just a phase, something temporary that would fade away. But betrayal has a way of leaving stains that no amount of lies can wash clean. Amanda began to notice the distance. She asked me why I was coming home late, why I seemed distracted, why my touch felt colder. I brushed off her concerns, blaming work, blaming stress, blaming everything except the truth. And each time I looked into her eyes, I saw the reflection of a man I no longer recognized. The breaking point came one night when Amanda surprised me at the office. She had brought dinner, a gesture of love, a reminder of the woman who had always been there for me. But she walked in just as Julia leaned over my desk, her hand on my shoulder, her lips dangerously close to mine. The silence in that moment was louder than any scream. Amanda's eyes filled with tears before she turned and walked away. I ran after her, but the damage was done. That was the night the cracks shattered into pieces. I had become the very thing I promised myself I would never be. I had betrayed my wife, my vow, and my father's memory. And yet, what I did not know was that Amanda carried her own secrets, her own cracks hidden beneath the surface. The shocking truth about marriage was waiting for me, and it was far darker than I ever imagined. After Amanda caught me in that office with Julia, the silence between us became unbearable. Our home, once filled with laughter and light, turned into a graveyard of unspoken words. She barely looked at me, and when she did, her eyes carried the weight of disappointment so heavy that I felt it pressing down on my chest. I tried to apologize. I tried to explain. I told her it was a mistake, that Julia meant nothing, that my love for her was real. But every word I spoke sounded hollow, like an echo in a room where the walls had already collapsed. Amanda did not scream. She did not curse. She did not even cry. That was what terrified me the most. Her silence was colder than rage, sharper than anger, deadlier than tears. Days turned into weeks, and the distance grew wider. I thought the worst had already happened. I thought my betrayal was the storm that destroyed us. But what I did not know was that Amanda had been living with a storm of her own long before mine ever began. One evening, after weeks of silence, she finally spoke. She sat across from me at the dinner table, her fork untouched, her eyes staring into mine as if searching for something she had lost years ago. "There is something you need to know," she said quietly. Her voice trembled, but her words carried the weight of finality. My heart pounded. For a moment, I thought she was going to say she wanted a divorce, that she was leaving me for good. But the truth she revealed was far more devastating. She told me she had not been faithful either. I felt the ground collapse beneath me. The room spun. My mind refused to process it. The woman I had risked everything for, the woman I had chosen to trust despite my vow, the woman I believed was pure and untouched by betrayal, she had betrayed me too. At first, I thought she was saying it just to hurt me, to strike back for what I had done with Julia. But the look in her eyes told me otherwise. It was not revenge. It was confession. She told me that months before she ever caught me in that office, she had been seeing someone else. A man she met through a friend. A man who filled the void my absence had created when I drowned myself in work. A man who gave her the attention, the laughter, and the intimacy I had unknowingly stolen from her when I prioritized everything but her. My chest tightened, and my throat burned. I wanted to scream, to accuse her, to throw her betrayal in her face the way she could have done to me. But I could not. Because deep inside, I knew she was right. I had abandoned her long before Julia ever entered the picture. I had left her emotionally starving, and someone else fed her. The irony crushed me. The boy who grew up watching his mother betray his crippled father had now become a man living in the exact same nightmare. I had tried so hard to escape it, yet I had walked straight into it. The days that followed were nothing but shadows. Amanda and I lived under the same roof, but our hearts were miles apart. The house felt haunted, not by ghosts, but by memories of who we used to be. Every room reminded me of what we had lost. Every silence screamed louder than words ever could. I thought about my father constantly. I remembered the way he clenched his fists in his wheelchair as my mother's laughter drifted down the hallway. I remembered the tears he tried to hide, the humiliation he carried. And for the first time, I understood him. I understood the pain of being betrayed by the one person you trusted most. But what made it worse was knowing that I had also done the same thing to Amanda. I had not just been betrayed, I had betrayed too. One night, I sat alone in our bedroom, staring at the ceiling, and the truth finally hit me. Marriage was not what I thought it was. It was not the fairy tale people painted, nor the curse I feared as a child. It was something far more complicated, something darker and heavier. Marriage was a battlefield, and love was the weapon and the wound all at once. The shocking truth I discovered about marriage was that it does not break because of one betrayal, one lie, or one mistake. It breaks because of the cracks we ignore, the silences we let grow, the secrets we bury, and the emptiness we refuse to fill. Amanda and I had both played our part in destroying what we built. She with her silence, and I with my neglect. She with her secret affair, and I with mine. In the end, we were not victims of each other. We were victims of ourselves. Amanda eventually packed her things and left. There was no dramatic fight, no shouting, no begging. Just quiet acceptance that we had reached the end. As I watched her drive away, I felt the weight of my childhood vow pressing against me again. I realized that perhaps I should have listened to that boy who swore never to marry. But it was too late. I stood alone in the ruins of my marriage, carrying the scars of both my father and myself. I had become him, and Amanda had become my mother. History had repeated itself, and I had been powerless to stop it. Today, as I share this story, I do not claim to have answers. I only have scars, memories, and regrets. But if there is one lesson I want anyone listening to take away, it is this: marriage is not just about love. It is about work, sacrifice, vulnerability, and truth. Without those things, love will die, no matter how strong it seems at first. The shocking truth I discovered about marriage is that it can either be the most beautiful bond or the most destructive prison. And sometimes, it is both at once. That was the day I vowed again, but this time, not out of anger, not out of bitterness. I vowed never to lie to myself again about what marriage truly is. And perhaps, just perhaps, I vowed never to marry again. And that was my story, a story of love, betrayal, and the shocking truth I discovered about marriage. If you have stayed with me until this moment, I want to sincerely thank you. To all my loyal viewers and to those who are just joining, I am deeply grateful. Your support gives me the strength to keep sharing these stories with you. Now I leave you with a few questions. What do you believe truly holds a marriage together, love, loyalty, or sacrifice? Can betrayal ever be forgiven, or does it leave a wound that never heals? And most importantly, do you think one person's pain should shape the way they view love for the rest of their lives? I would love to hear your thoughts. Share your perspective in the comments and let us talk about it. Your engagement means more than you know, and together we can create a space where stories like these spark deeper conversations about life, choices, and the consequences that follow.